Aliens sent an SOS, but the Deathworlders' Special Forces fleet answered. Part 1. The Desperate Signal. The twin suns of the Valara system cast golden light across New Valastra's crystalline oceans. The moon hung like a jewel in space, its surface covered in bioluminescent forests and peaceful cities built from living coral. For 3 generations, the Valasian people had called this paradise home. They were artists, philosophers, scientists. Their bodies were delicate, translucent skin revealing the gentle pulse of internal systems. They stood no taller than a human child, with 4 graceful limbs and large, expressive eyes that had never seen war. Defense Coordinator Thera sat in the planetary monitoring station, her tendrils trembling as she watched the sensor displays. 12 ships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of their system. The energy signatures matched nothing in the peaceful trade networks. These were warships. These were predators. The lead vessel opened communications. The face that appeared made Thera's breathing sacs contract in fear. Commander Zyrax was Crinthian, an insectoid species known throughout the outer colonies for one thing: mercenary brutality. His compound eyes glittered with cold calculation. His mandibles clicked as he spoke in the universal trade language. Valasian colony of New Valastra, your moon possesses rare mineral deposits. Your orbital processing stations will be seized. Your population will provide labor. You have 48 standard hours to prepare for occupation. Resistance will result in planetary bombardment. Compliance will result in servitude. Choose. The transmission ended. Thera stared at the blank screen, her mind struggling to process the words. Her people had no weapons. Their entire philosophy rejected violence. The colony's few shuttles could evacuate perhaps 2,000 of their 40,000 citizens. The rest would face whatever horrors Zyrax planned. She activated the distress beacon with shaking limbs. The signal burst outward at faster-than-light speed, carrying their plea across known space. The coalition of peaceful worlds would respond. They had to. That was the promise of civilization. That was the agreement that allowed species like the Valasians to exist without armies. Hours crawled past like wounded creatures. Thera sent message after message. The responses trickled back, each one a knife to her hopes. The coalition peacekeeping fleet was engaged in negotiations 3 sectors away. The nearest military force was 17 days distant. Independent security contractors demanded payment her people could never afford. One by one, the doors closed. One by one, hope died. The mercenary ships moved into orbital positions. Zyrax sent another transmission, this time showing images of other colonies that had resisted, burning cities, shattered structures, bodies floating in space. Thera watched and felt something break inside her. She would have to tell her people to surrender. She would have to watch everything they built become chains. Then a new voice cut through the communication channels. It was rough, speaking an accented trade language with an unfamiliar rhythm. New Valastra Colony, this is the United Earth Special Forces Battle Group Reaper. We intercepted your distress call. Transmit exact enemy disposition and civilian locations. We are inbound. Hold position. Thera's translator struggled with some of the words. Earth. She knew that name. Every species in the coalition knew that name, though most spoke it in whispers. Earth was a death world, category 12 on the habitability scale. A planet so violent that its dominant species evolved to survive things that would kill most galactic citizens instantly. Humans were the apex predators of a world filled with apex predators. The stories about humans terrified children across civilized space. They could survive massive injuries. They could go days without water. Their bodies produced combat chemicals that made them faster and stronger when threatened. They had forward-facing eyes like hunters. They showed their teeth when they were happy, which looked identical to threat displays. Their grip strength could crush bones. They could run for hours without stopping. But the truly frightening thing about humans was not their physical capabilities. It was their minds. They thought differently than other species. They saw patterns where others saw chaos. They adapted to new situations with terrifying speed. They had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to kill things bigger and stronger than themselves. And they were very, very good at it. Thera had heard other stories too. Stories about human mercenaries who slaughtered entire colonies. Stories about human pirates who showed no mercy. Stories about wars humans fought against each other. Conflicts so brutal they made the Crinthian raids look like minor disputes. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves dozens of times before achieving peace. They carried that violence inside them always, barely contained. But they were also coalition members now. They had signed the treaties. They followed the laws. And right now they were the only ones answering the call. "This is Defense Coordinator Thera," she transmitted, her voice steadier than she felt. "We have 40,000 civilians in 6 population centers. Enemy force consists of 12 warships, estimated 4,000 combatants. We have no military capability. We have no weapons. We are completely defenseless." Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then the human voice returned, and Thera heard something in it that she could not identify. Later she would learn the word, anger. "Understood, New Velastra. Upload all sensor data on enemy vessels. We will handle the situation. Reaper out." The mercenary fleet detected the new arrivals 18 hours later. Thera watched on sensors as 3 human ships materialized at the system's edge. They were smaller than Zyrax's vessels, sleeker, built with strange angles that seemed to absorb sensor beams. They did not approach directly. Instead, they spread out in a pattern that made no tactical sense to Thera's limited military knowledge. Zyrax broadcast to the human ships, his mandibles clicking with what might have been amusement. "Human vessels, you are interfering in legitimate salvage operations. Withdraw immediately. This system is claimed." The response came from a different voice, deeper, with an edge that made Thera's skin prickle. "Commander Zyrax, this is Commander Marcus Reeves of the UESF Battlegroup Reaper. New Velastra is under United Earth protection. You have 1 hour to withdraw from this system. This is your only warning." Zyrax's laughter rattled through the speakers. 3 ships against 12. You humans are as stupid as the rumors suggest. Perhaps I will add your vessels to my fleet. Your species sells for premium prices in the slave markets." "Noted," Reeves said, his tone unchanged. "Clock's ticking, Commander." 59 minutes. The human ships continued their strange positioning, moving through the system at speeds that seemed inefficient, taking routes that wasted fuel. Thera could not understand their strategy. Were they trying to intimidate through confidence? Were they scanning for weaknesses? Or were they simply preparing to die? She accessed what little information the Valasian databases contained about human military forces. Most of it was classified. What she could find was contradictory and confusing. Humans had fought in only 2 coalition conflicts since joining. Both times they had been assigned to special operations roles. Both times the official reports were heavily redacted. But the unofficial stories spoke of impossible missions completed, of enemies who vanished in the night, of humans who fought like demons. One phrase appeared repeatedly in the fragmentary accounts: "Humans don't fight fair. They fight to win." Thera did not understand the distinction. She contacted the human flagship directly, bypassing military protocols in her desperation. "Commander Reeves, I must speak with you, please." The human face that appeared on her screen made Thera instinctively retreat. Marcus Reeves was large, even for a human. His skin was dark, marked with scars that told stories of survived violence. His eyes were brown, warm, but they held something ancient and dangerous. He had removed his military jacket, revealing arms covered in more scars and what appeared to be decorative markings. Humans called them tattoos. Thera recognized military insignia mixed with symbols she did not understand. "Defense Coordinator," Reeves said, his voice gentler than before. "What do you need?" "Commander, you are outnumbered 4 to 1. The mercenary vessels outgun your ship significantly. Why are you doing this? Why risk your lives for strangers?" Reeves smiled. The expression should have been terrifying, showing teeth like a predator. Instead, somehow it was reassuring. "Ma'am, I've reviewed your colony's information. You're scientists, artists, teachers, you built something beautiful here. Those bastards want to destroy it because they're stronger and you're not. That's not justice. That's bullying. And humans really don't like bullies. But you will die," Thera said, her voice breaking. "Your 3 ships cannot defeat 12. Mathematics does not lie. Mathematics assumes conventional warfare," Reeves replied. "It assumes everyone plays by the same rules. It assumes the goal is to destroy all enemy vessels in direct combat." His smile grew wider, more dangerous. "We're not here to play fair, Coordinator. We're here to win. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a battle to prepare." The transmission ended. Thera sat in confused silence, trying to understand. What did he mean about rules? What did fairness have to do with survival? What were the humans planning? She got her first answer 30 minutes later. The human ships stopped their random movements and formed a triangle pattern between the mercenary fleet and New Velastra. They broadcast on all frequencies, and this time it was not Commander Reeves speaking. It was music. Human music. The sound was aggressive, rhythmic, filled with instruments Thera did not recognize. The lyrics spoke of battles and defiance and refusing to surrender. The volume was deafening. "What are they doing?" Thera's assistant whispered. "Are they trying to communicate?" "I think," Thera said slowly, "they are making a statement." Zyrax clearly thought the same. His response was to order an immediate attack. All 12 mercenary ships opened fire simultaneously. Missiles and energy weapons converged on the human vessels in a storm of destruction that should have vaporized them instantly. The human ships moved. Not with the sluggish grace of normal capital vessels, but with speed that defied their size. They twisted and dove, their engines burning at levels that should have torn them apart. Point defense systems erupted in walls of light, intercepting missiles that got too close. Energy weapons struck their shields and were absorbed by some technology Thera's sensors could not identify. The human ships did not return fire. They just dodged, weaved, and survived impossible barrages. It was like watching someone dance in a rainstorm and never get wet. Then, as suddenly as it started, the mercenary barrage stopped. Zyrax had expended a third of his ammunition. The human vessels were still intact, still mobile, still broadcasting their aggressive music. Commander Reeves's voice cut through the channel, calm and professional. "Time's up, Zyrax. Last chance to withdraw. You cannot win." The Corinthian shrieked. "You have fired nothing. Your ships will run out of power. You will die slowly." "Maybe," Reeves acknowledged. "Or maybe we've been waiting for you to waste your ammunition while we positioned exactly where we wanted to be." Hard to say, really. That was when Thera's sensors detected new contacts, dozens of them. Small objects that had been floating dormant in the system, camouflaged among asteroids and debris. The human ships had not been moving randomly. They had been deploying mines, smart mines that could think and hunt and had been waiting patiently for their targets to move into optimal positions. The mines activated simultaneously. They accelerated toward the mercenary fleet using gravitational manipulation, moving faster than conventional missiles, too small for point defense to track effectively. They struck with precision, targeting engine sections and weapons arrays. Explosions bloomed across 6 mercenary vessels. None were destroyed, but all were crippled. Their mobility and firepower reduced to fractions. "That's not fair," Zyrax screamed. "That's not honorable combat." "No," Reeves agreed, his voice cold. "It's effective combat. There's a difference. Now, are you going to keep this up, or can we discuss terms?" The mercenary commander cut the transmission. His remaining functional ships tried to retreat, but the human vessels moved to intercept with shocking speed. This time they did fire, precisely targeted railgun shots that struck propulsion systems with surgical accuracy. The mercenaries found themselves trapped, unable to flee, unable to fight effectively. Thera watched in amazement. The humans had not tried to destroy the enemy fleet. They had neutralized it, disabled it, removed its ability to threaten without unnecessary killing. This was not the behavior she expected from Deathworld predators. Another transmission arrived, this time from a different human. The woman who appeared was younger than Reeves, with pale skin and dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. She wore the same military uniform with different rank insignia. Defense Coordinator Thera, "I am Lieutenant Sarah Chen, UESF Marine Corps. We will be deploying ground forces to your colony within the hour to establish defensive positions. We expect the mercenaries to attempt boarding actions or orbital assault. We will prevent that. Please instruct your people to remain in shelters and to stay away from the designated military zones. We will do everything possible to protect your civilians." "Lieutenant," Thera managed, "what about the mercenary fleet? They still have thousands of soldiers on those ships." Chen's smile was different from Reeves's expression. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "They won't be a problem much longer. Reaper 1 is deploying infiltration teams as we speak. By the time those mercenaries figure out what's happening, it'll be too late." "Infiltration? You're boarding their ships while they're still functional?" "Special forces, ma'am. It's what we do." The transmission ended. Thera turned to her sensor displays, trying to understand how humans planned to board hostile vessels in the middle of a combat zone. Her scanners showed nothing. No assault shuttles, no boarding pods, no obvious movement toward the enemy fleet. Then one of her technicians gasped. Coordinator, I'm detecting hull breaches on 3 mercenary vessels. Internal sensors show intruders, but I cannot get clear readings. It's like they're not there. How is that possible? I don't know. The signatures keep appearing and disappearing. Sometimes they're in one section, then instantly in another. It doesn't make sense, but it did make sense if you were human. Thera realized with growing understanding.
Stealth technology.
Surprise tactics. Moving through enemy vessels like ghosts. This was what humans meant by special operations. This was why they were feared. Over the next 2 hours, the mercenary fleet descended into chaos. Ships reported internal fighting. Systems malfunctioned mysteriously. Command centers went dark. Zyrax broadcast increasingly desperate messages, demanding the humans stop their cowardly tactics and fight honorably. The humans ignored him. By the time Commander Reeves opened communications again, 6 mercenary ships had been captured from within. The remaining 6 were surrounded by human vessels, their weapons disabled, their escape routes blocked. Commander Zyrax, Reeves said pleasantly, we've taken control of half your fleet. The other half is about to be destroyed if you don't surrender immediately. Your choice, prison camp or vacuum. You have 30 seconds. The Corinthian stared at the screen, his compound eyes reflecting shock and rage. You animals, you Deathworld savages. The galaxy will hear about this violation of combat protocols. The galaxy will hear that you threatened peaceful civilians and got your ass kicked by 3 human ships. But sure, tell your story. Might be harder to find work after everyone knows you surrendered to savages. 20 seconds. Zyrax surrendered. His fleet was escorted to New Valastra's orbit, where coalition peacekeeping forces could retrieve them when they finally arrived. The human Marines established defensive positions around the colony, though the immediate threat had passed. Thera stood at the spaceport as the first human ground forces arrived. They were smaller than she expected, not the giants of rumor. They wore armor that made them look larger, but when Lieutenant Chen removed her helmet, Thera saw someone young, professional, and tired. Thank you, Thera said simply. You saved us. You risked everything for strangers. Chen smiled, this time with genuine warmth. That's the job, ma'am. Humans might come from a dangerous world, but that just means we understand danger. We know what it's like to face things bigger and stronger than us. We know what it's like to need help and not get it. So when someone sends an SOS, we answer. Every time. But why special forces? Why not peacekeepers like the coalition sends? Because peacekeepers negotiate. They mediate. They work within established rules. Chen gestured to her Marines, setting up their equipment. Special forces? We work outside the rules. We do what needs to be done even when it's not pretty. We protect people who can't protect themselves, using every advantage we have. That's what Deathworlders do best, ma'am. We survive. And we make sure others survive, too. As the sun set over New Valastra's crystal oceans, Thera watched the human soldiers work. They moved with purpose and precision, but they also helped confused Valasian civilians, shared their rations, and showed patience with frightened children. They were warriors, yes, predators from a violent world, but they had chosen to use that violence in defense of peace. For the first time in 48 hours, Thera allowed herself to hope. Not just for immediate survival, but for what this meant. Humanity had answered when no one else could. Perhaps the galaxy needed Deathworlders after all, not as monsters to fear, but as guardians to trust. The war, she realized, was not over. But they had allies now. Unlikely, terrifying, wonderful allies. When Deathworlders make their stand, the human presence on New Valastra changed everything about the colony within the first 24 hours. Thera watched from her office as Lieutenant Sarah Chen coordinated defensive positions with an efficiency that seemed almost supernatural. The humans worked in teams of 4, spreading across the 6 population centers with equipment that looked both advanced and strangely primitive. Young Kira, a Valasian xenobiologist barely into her 2nd decade, had been assigned as liaison to the human ground forces. She approached Thera's office with her skin flushed in patterns that indicated excitement and terror in equal measure. Coordinator, the humans are requesting access to our geological surveys and atmospheric data. They want detailed information about the cave systems beneath the southern settlement. They also asked about our tidal patterns and weather prediction models. I don't understand why warriors need scientific data. Thera felt curiosity overcome her fear. Did you ask them? Lieutenant Chen said humans don't just fight on battlefields. She said they use everything. The terrain, the weather, the environment. She said Earth taught them to make weapons out of anything. Show me what they're doing. Kira led Thera through the colony's bioluminescent streets. The Valasian architecture was delicate, buildings grown from living coral that pulsed with soft light. The structures were beautiful but fragile, designed for a peaceful existence. Now human soldiers moved through the spaces like shadows, installing equipment that seemed to blend into the organic surroundings. They found Lieutenant Chen in the central plaza, surrounded by holographic displays showing three-dimensional maps of the entire colony. The human officer was studying tidal flow patterns with the intensity of a scholar. Two Marines stood nearby, one human male with dark skin and cybernetic enhancements on his left arm, another human female with red hair and scars across her face. Coordinator, Chen acknowledged without looking up. Good timing. I need to understand something about your moon's gravitational relationship with the gas giant it orbits. Your tides shift every 6 hours, correct? Yes, Thera confirmed, confused. But what does that have to do with defense? Chen smiled that knowing smile again. Everything. The mercenaries will try to land troops if diplomacy fails. When they do, they'll target the coastal settlements first because they're easier to access. But if we time it right, we can use the tidal surge to deny them landing zones, flood their dropships, force them to adjust their approach, funnel them exactly where we want them. The male Marine spoke up, his voice carrying a distinct accent. Ma'am, Sergeant Jackson here. I've been reviewing your cave systems. They're extensive. Natural choke points throughout. If hostiles breach the surface defenses, we can evacuate civilians underground and turn the tunnels into kill zones. Kill zones? Thera's translator struggled with the term. The female Marine, whose nameplate read Rodriguez, explained in gentler tones. Defensive positions where we have overwhelming advantages, Coordinator. Narrow passages where numbers don't matter, where we can hold against superior forces. It's what humans do best. We've been fighting in caves and tunnels since before recorded history. It's instinctive for us. Chen pulled up new displays showing the human defensive strategy. It was nothing like the military tactics Thera had studied in the Coalition databases. Those strategies focused on formation fighting, fleet maneuvers, overwhelming firepower. The human approach was different, asymmetric, unpredictable. They were not preparing to meet the enemy in open battle. They were preparing to make the entire moon into a trap. Lieutenant, Thera said slowly, your plan seems to assume you will be fighting on the ground, but your ships defeated the mercenary fleet. Why would there be ground combat? Because Zyrax is desperate now, Chen explained. He's lost ships, lost face, lost everything. Men like him don't surrender peacefully. They escalate. He'll try one more assault, probably with everything he has left. And when he does, we need to be ready. Kira stepped forward, her tendrils quivering with the nervousness she was trying to suppress. Lieutenant Chen, may I ask about your homeworld? The databases say Earth is incredibly dangerous. Is that true? The three humans exchanged glances. Rodriguez laughed, the sound surprisingly warm. Dangerous? That's putting it mildly. Try lethal. Earth has weather that can kill you in minutes. Animals that eat creatures 10 times their size. Plants that are poisonous. Insects that carry diseases. Earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis. Basically, everything on our planet either wants to kill you or doesn't care if you die. Then how did your species survive? Kira asked. Sergeant Jackson rolled his shoulder and Thera heard mechanical components whir. We adapted. Got smart. Got tough. Learned to use tools. Learned to work together. Humans aren't the strongest species. We're not the fastest. We're not the most poisonous or the best camouflaged. But we're persistent. We think, we plan. We survive and we fight, Chen added quietly. Not because we're naturally violent, though Earth certainly trained us for violence. We fight because everything on our world taught us a simple lesson. Protect your own or lose them. Humans evolved in groups, tribes, communities. We survived because we defended each other. That instinct never went away. A proximity alarm interrupted the conversation. Chen's expression shifted instantly from patient teacher to focused warrior. Contact. Dropships entering atmosphere. 6 vessels heading for the northern settlement. The Marines moved with fluid efficiency, grabbing weapons that had been leaning against walls, checking ammunition loads, activating communication systems. In seconds, they transformed from relaxed soldiers into combat-ready operators. Coordinator, get your people to the shelters now, Chen ordered. Kira, you're with me. You know the terrain better than my maps. They moved through the colony at a pace that left Thera struggling to keep up. Velasians were not built for running. Their bodies were designed for a gentle world with light gravity. But the humans, despite wearing armor that must weigh more than Thera's entire body, moved with speed and endurance that defied physics. The northern settlement appeared peaceful when they arrived, the bioluminescent buildings glowing in the gathering dusk. But Thera's sensors showed the dropships approaching rapidly, 6 vessels each carrying at least 50 mercenary soldiers, 300 fighters against 12 human marines. Chen spoke into her communication device with calm precision. All units, positions. Remember, we're not trying to kill everyone. We're trying to make them regret landing. Make it hurt. Make it costly. Make them think twice about the next assault. The dropships descended through the atmosphere with engines screaming. They were large, brutal vessels designed for one purpose, delivering troops under fire. They approached the settlement from 3 different angles, clearly planning to surround and overwhelm. That was when Thera saw what the humans had prepared. The ground erupted. Not with explosives, but with something far more elegant and terrifying. The humans had used the colony's own irrigation system, rerouting water from the tidal reserves into a network of channels just beneath the surface. The timing was perfect. As the dropships extended their landing gear, the ground beneath them liquefied, turning solid earth into sucking mud. 2 dropships tilted immediately, their landing gear sinking into unstable ground. Ramps extended into slurry that made deployment impossible. Mercenary soldiers tried to disembark and found themselves chest-deep in mud, struggling, vulnerable. The other 4 dropships adjusted, landing on firmer ground near the settlement's edge. Ramps dropped. Soldiers poured out with weapons ready, clearly expecting resistance. What they got was silence. The settlement appeared abandoned. No defenders visible, no obvious targets. The mercenaries advanced cautiously through streets lined with living coral buildings. Their commander shouted orders, organizing his forces into tactical squads. Then the humans spoke. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Projected through speakers the Marines had hidden throughout the settlement. It was Commander Reeves, speaking in the mercenary trade language. Attention, mercenary forces. You are surrounded. Your dropships are compromised. Your fleet is captured. Your commander has surrendered. You have 2 options. Put down your weapons and you will be treated as prisoners of war under coalition regulations. Continue this assault and we will respond with lethal force. You have 30 seconds to decide. The mercenary commander, a large Corinthian warrior whose armor bore the marks of many battles, laughed. Humans, show yourselves if you dare. 300 soldiers against your handful. You cannot win. 20 seconds, Reeves's voice responded calmly. The mercenaries continued their advance, confident in their numbers. They spread through the settlement in coordinated patterns, checking buildings, securing positions. Standard military doctrine for urban combat. The humans showed them why doctrine failed against adaptive tactics. The attack came from angles the mercenaries never considered. From above, where Marines had positioned themselves on coral structures, using the building's natural camouflage to blend in. From below, where humans had hidden in drainage culverts and maintenance tunnels. From the sides, where Rodriguez and Jackson had positioned themselves with weapons designed for precision shooting. But the humans were not trying to kill everyone. Chen had been clear about that. They were making a point. Every shot the Marines fired struck with surgical precision. Weapons disabled. Communication equipment destroyed. Armor joints targeted. The mercenaries found themselves wounded but not dead, crippled but not killed. It was methodical. It was terrifying. It was mercy shown with brutal efficiency. Kira watched from a safe distance, her translator working overtime as she listened to the Marines coordinate. Their communication was minimal, almost instinctive. They moved like they shared one mind, covering each other, creating overlapping fields of fire, never exposing themselves unnecessarily. Target left. You're 3 o'clock. Got him. Moving. Covering. Contact rear. 2 hostiles. Engaging. The phrases meant nothing to Kira individually, but together they created a symphony of coordinated violence. The humans fought as a unit, each Marine trusting the others with their lives. Within 5 minutes, the mercenary assault collapsed. Half their forces were wounded. The rest had taken cover in buildings pinned down by Marines who seemed to predict their every move. The mercenary commander screamed orders that went ignored. His soldiers had lost the will to fight. That was when Thera understood what Chen meant about making it hurt. The humans were not fighting to destroy. They were fighting to demoralize. Every shot told the mercenaries the same message. You cannot win. You cannot even effectively fight back. Surrender or die. The mercenary commander made a final desperate decision. He activated his armor's self-destruct sequence, intending to take the settlement with him in one massive explosion. Sergeant Jackson shot him before he could complete the activation. The precision was astounding. From 200 meters away, through a narrow window, hitting a moving target in exactly the right spot to disable the armor without triggering the explosive. It was the kind of shot that should have been impossible. But humans came from a world where they evolved to throw rocks at running prey. Their brains were wired for ballistic prediction. Their ancestors survived by hitting distant targets with primitive weapons. Millions of years of evolution had made humans into natural marksmen. The mercenary commander collapsed, alive but immobilized. His soldiers, seeing their leader down and their assault completely countered, began surrendering. They dropped weapons and raised limbs in the universal gesture of submission. Chen emerged from her position, walking casually through the settlement as if she had not just orchestrated a perfect defensive victory. She approached the surrendered mercenaries with her weapon lowered but ready. Medical supplies are being brought up, she announced. We'll treat your wounded. You'll be held as prisoners until coalition peacekeepers arrive. Anyone who tries anything stupid will regret it. Anyone who cooperates will be treated fairly. Understood? The mercenaries understood. They had just fought Deathworlders and lost despite overwhelming numerical advantage. Their pride was broken. Their confidence shattered. Kira approached Chen carefully. Lieutenant, that was incredible. You defeated 300 soldiers with 12 Marines. 14, Chen corrected. Commander Reeves and another team were positioned at the secondary landing zone. Would have engaged if these forces had broken through. She surveyed the settlement, checking for damage. And we didn't defeat them through superior numbers. We defeated them through superior positioning, preparation, and psychology. We made them think they couldn't win. Once soldiers believe that, the battle's already over. Is that what Earth taught you? Chen considered the question. Earth taught us that big and strong doesn't always win. Smart and adaptable does. A human can't defeat a tiger in direct combat. But we can trap it, outsmart it, use tools, use terrain. Our entire species exists because our ancestors learned to think their way out of fights. They couldn't win through strength alone. Over the next several hours, human medical teams treated wounded mercenaries alongside Valasian civilians who had suffered injuries in the chaos. Thera watched in fascination as the same Marines who had fought with lethal precision now showed gentleness and care. They bandaged enemies. They shared water rations. They even made jokes to calm frightened prisoners. They have two faces, Thera said to Kira. Warriors and healers. How do they balance both? I asked Sergeant Jackson about that, Kira replied. He said humans don't see it as balance. They see it as necessity. You have to be capable of violence to protect people, but you also have to remember why you're protecting them. The violence is a tool. The compassion is the purpose. That night, Commander Reeves addressed the colony through the communication network. The mercenary fleet had withdrawn completely, taking their captured vessels and wounded pride back to whatever holes they came from. The threat was over. New Velastra was safe. People of New Velastra, Reeves said, his face appearing on every screen in the colony. Our forces will remain in your system until coalition peacekeepers arrive. We'll help repair any damage from the assault. We'll train your people in basic defensive measures, not because we think you should become warriors, but because everyone deserves the ability to protect themselves. Thera listened to the speech from her office, Chen standing beside her. Your commander said you'll train us. But we are not fighters. We never will be. And that's okay, Chen replied. But even peaceful people need to understand danger, need to recognize threats, need to know when to run and when to stand. We're not going to turn you into soldiers, coordinator. We're just going to teach you how to survive long enough for help to arrive. Like you survived on Earth. Exactly like that. Humans aren't special because we're violent. We're special because we survived violence. There's a difference. As the twin suns rose over New Velastra's crystalline oceans, casting new light across the saved colony, Thera realized something profound. The galaxy had feared humans because they came from a death world. But perhaps the galaxy needed humans precisely because of that origin. They understood danger in ways peaceful species could not. They had adapted to threats that would destroy others. And now they were using that hard-won knowledge to protect instead of conquer, to defend instead of attack, to serve instead of dominate. The Deathworlders had answered the SOS. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what humanity truly meant. Not monsters, not savages, guardians, warriors who fought so others would not have to, survivors who used their skills to ensure others survived too. Thera looked at the exhausted Marine beside her and felt something she never expected to feel toward a predator. Species, gratitude, trust, hope. Thank you, she said simply, for coming, for fighting, for showing us what humans really are. Chen smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. That's what we do, Coordinator. That's who we are. Someone sends an SOS, we answer. Every single time. The price of peace. The Coalition peacekeeping fleet arrived 12 days after the battle. 3 massive vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valara system, broadcasting diplomatic credentials and apologies for their delayed response. They were too late to help, but they were here to clean up. Commander Marcus Reeves stood on the bridge of the UESF Reaper, watching the Coalition ships approach with an expression Thera had learned to recognize as carefully controlled frustration. The diplomatic contingent requested immediate meetings with all parties involved. They wanted statements, reports, analysis of every action taken. They wanted to understand how 3 human ships had resolved a crisis that should have required a full peacekeeping task force. Politics, Lieutenant Chen muttered, standing beside Reeves at the tactical display. They're embarrassed. We made them look bad by handling it ourselves. We did what was necessary, Reeves replied. Let them write their reports. Let them have their meetings. As long as the people of New Velastra are safe, I don't care about bruised egos. But Thera cared. She had spent the past 12 days watching the humans work with her people, teaching basic defense protocols, repairing damage from the brief assault, and establishing communication networks that would prevent future isolation. The humans never asked for payment, never demanded tribute. They simply helped because it was needed. Now Coalition bureaucrats were arriving to question everything, to analyze every decision through the lens of established protocols and regulations. Thera had reviewed those protocols. They were designed for civilized species who valued negotiation over action. They were not designed for humans who understood that sometimes violence was the only answer predators understood. The diplomatic delegation, transported to New Velastra's surface in gleaming shuttles that made the human military vessels look utilitarian and worn. Ambassador Kelrith, a Solarian with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns, led the team. His species were renowned diplomats, capable of sensing emotional states through bioelectric fields. They were also famously arrogant about their conflict resolution methods. Thera met the delegation in the colony's main administrative building, with Commander Reeves and Lieutenant Chen flanking her. The Solarian ambassador swept into the room with practiced grace, his entourage of assistants and analysts spreading through the space like a performance troupe taking stage. Coordinator Thera, Kelrith began, his voice melodious and condescending in equal measure. We are relieved to find your colony intact. The Coalition extends its deepest apologies for our delayed response. We understand human military forces intervened in our absence. How unfortunate that violence became necessary. Reeves's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Chen's hand moved fractionally closer to her sidearm. Thera felt her skin flush with anger patterns she usually kept hidden. Unfortunate? She repeated, her translator ensuring the word carried all her incredulity. Ambassador, the humans saved 40,000 lives. They defeated a mercenary fleet. They protected my people when no one else could. There is nothing unfortunate about survival. Kelrith's crystalline features shifted in what might have been a diplomatic smile. Of course, Coordinator. We merely observe that conflict resolution through military force often creates additional complications. The Coalition prefers negotiated settlements. Had we arrived sooner, perhaps this entire situation could have been resolved peacefully. The mercenaries were going to bombard our cities, Thera said flatly. They showed us images of other colonies they had destroyed. There was no negotiation possible. There was only submission or death. Many conflicts appear binary until skilled mediators become involved, the ambassador replied smoothly. Violence is rarely the only answer, though some species are more inclined toward it than others. His gaze shifted to Reeves meaningfully. Deathworld species, for instance, often see force as the primary tool rather than the last resort. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut atmosphere. Chen took a half-step forward, but Reeves stopped her with a minute gesture. When the human commander spoke, his voice was absolutely level, devoid of emotion. That, Thera had learned, was when humans were most dangerous. Ambassador Kelrith, let me clarify something. We received a distress call. We responded. We assessed the situation and determined that the mercenary force represented an imminent threat to civilian lives. We acted within United Earth Special Forces operational parameters to neutralize that threat with minimum casualties. Coalition peacekeeping forces were 17 days away. The mercenaries gave a 48-hour ultimatum. Mathematics suggested intervention was necessary. We intervened. The civilians lived. Mission accomplished. But at what cost? Kelrith pressed. You disabled or captured 12 vessels. You engaged in ground combat within a civilian settlement. You used tactics that some might characterize as excessive. The mercenary commander claims your forces employed what amounts to psychological torture. Chen laughed, the sound harsh and humorless. Psychological torture? We made them surrender instead of killing them. We treated their wounded. We gave them the option to live. Would the ambassador prefer we had simply destroyed their fleet and let the survivors suffocate in vacuum? Because that would have been faster and more efficient. We prefer that military force not be used at all, Lieutenant. Then perhaps the coalition should arrive on time when colonies call for help, Reeves said quietly. Perhaps diplomacy works better when the diplomats are actually present. The Yao. Tension in the room crystallized into something dangerous. Thera saw the Solarian ambassador's entourage shifting uncomfortably. Humans might be smaller than many species, but their presence could dominate a space through sheer intensity of purpose. Before the confrontation could escalate further, a young Phalasian technician burst into the room, his skin pattern showing pure terror. Coordinator. Sensors detect a new contact. Single vessel, massive signature. It just dropped out of FTL at the system's edge. Everyone rushed to the monitoring station. The sensor display showed a ship that dwarfed everything else in the system. It was Corinthian in origin, but modified heavily with weapon systems and armor plating that turned it into a mobile fortress. The vessel was broadcasting on all frequencies, and the voice that came through made Thera's breathing sacs contract in horror. It was Warlord Zyrax, and he was beyond rational thought. His broadcasts were incoherent screaming mixed with promises of vengeance. He would destroy New Velastra. He would kill every Valasian. He would broadcast the footage across the galaxy, as proof that no one humiliated the Corinthian clans without consequences. The massive dreadnought accelerated toward the inhabited moon, its engines burning at levels that suggested the crew no longer cared about mechanical stress. They were on a suicide run, powered by rage and wounded pride. Ambassador Kelrith's crystalline face somehow paled. How did he get that vessel? Our intelligence indicated he commanded only medium cruisers. Called in every favor, Reeves said, studying the sensor data with professional focus. Probably bankrupted his clan to buy or rent it. Doesn't matter. What matters is he's heading toward a moon with 40,000 civilians, and we have maybe 4 hours before he arrives. Contact Coalition Command, Kelrith ordered his staff frantically. Request immediate military support. Full battle fleet authorization. They're 30 hours away, even at emergency speed, Chen reported, already running calculations. We don't have 30 hours. The Solarian ambassador turned to Reeves with desperation, replacing his earlier condescension. Commander, your ships are damaged from the previous engagement. You cannot possibly fight a vessel that size. We must evacuate. Save who we can. Evacuate 40,000 people in 4 hours. Reeves shook his head. Impossible. Even if we had enough transport capacity, which we don't, the dreadnought would intercept us before we could jump to FTL. No, we stand and fight. That's suicide. Look at the specifications of that ship. It outguns your entire battle group combined. Probably, Reeves admitted. But running guarantees everyone dies. Fighting at least gives us a chance. He activated his communication system. All Reaper units, battle stations, situation critical. Prepare for engagement against superior force. Standard Special Forces doctrine: adapt, improvise, overcome. The humans moved with the practiced efficiency Thera had come to recognize. Marines mobilized to defensive positions. Engineers worked frantically to repair damage from the previous battle. The 3 human ships repositioned themselves between the approaching dreadnought and New Velastra. Chen pulled up tactical displays showing the dreadnought's specifications. "It's bad, sir. Heavy armor, redundant systems, enough firepower to glass a continent. Direct engagement will get us killed in minutes." "Then we don't engage directly," Reeves said. "What do we know about its weaknesses?" "Ships that size are slow. Maneuvering takes time. And that much power generation requires massive reactor cores. If we could disable the cooling systems, we'd need to board it." "Yes, sir." Reeves looked at his officers. They looked back with expressions that combined fear and determination. They knew what was being asked. They knew the odds of survival approached 0. But they also knew that 40,000 civilians depended on them. "Volunteers only," Reeves said quietly. "This is a one-way mission. We board that dreadnought, sabotage the reactors, and cause enough damage to disable it. But we probably won't make it back, so if anyone wants to sit this one out, I understand. No judgment, no consequences." Every human officer stepped forward simultaneously. Thera felt something break inside her heart. "No. Please. You've already done so much. You've already risked everything. Don't throw your lives away for us." Reeves turned to her and she saw something in his eyes that transcended species. Compassion, resolve, peace with the choice he was making. "Coordinator, humans have a saying, some things are worth dying for. Your people are worth it. The future you're building here is worth it, and honestly, if we're going to die, I can't think of a better reason than protecting innocent lives." "But you'll be dead," Thera whispered. "Your families will never see you again. Your people will mourn you." "How can you accept that?" Chen answered, her voice soft but steady. "Because if we don't, we'll have to live knowing we could have made a difference and chose not to. That's worse than death, Coordinator. That's cowardice, and humans might be many things, but we're not cowards." The boarding team prepared with silent efficiency. 20 Marines, Commander Reeves, Lieutenant Chen, and Sergeant Jackson. They loaded weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat. They reviewed schematics of Corinthian dreadnought reactor systems. They recorded final messages for families they would never see again. Kira approached Chen as the Marine checked her armor seals. The young Valasian xenobiologist had spent the past 12 days shadowing the human forces, learning everything she could about the species from the dangerous world. "Lieutenant Chen," Kira said, her voice barely above a whisper, "why are humans like this? Why do you sacrifice yourselves for others?" Chen paused in her preparations. "You know what Earth taught us, Kira? That life is precious because it's fragile. Every species on our world that survived did so by adapting, by fighting, by refusing to give up. But humans survived through cooperation too, through protecting the weak, through standing together against threats. Our ancestors looked at the world trying to kill them and said, 'Not today.' And we learned that survival means more than just staying alive. It means making sure others stay alive too. But you're going to die. Maybe. Probably. But those 40,000 Valasians won't. Your artists will keep creating. Your scientists will keep discovering. Your children will grow up safe. That matters more than whether I see tomorrow." Chen smiled, reaching out to gently touch Kira's translucent shoulder. "Don't be sad for us. Be proud. We get to die as humans, doing what humans do best, protecting those who can't protect themselves." The dreadnought entered weapons range 3 hours and 42 minutes after detection. It was even more massive than the sensors indicated, bristling with weapon systems that could sterilize planetary surfaces. Warlord Zyrax broadcast one final message before opening fire. "Humans. Velasians, watch as I destroy everything you tried to protect. Watch as I prove that mercy is weakness. Watch and learn what happens to those who defy the Corinthian clans." The dreadnought's primary weapons charged with energy that made sensor displays scream warnings. One shot from those guns would vaporize the human ships. 2 shots would crack New Valastra's crust. The civilized galaxy was about to witness a massacre. Then Commander Marcus Reeves responded, broadcasting on all frequencies, ensuring every ship, every station, every listening post in the sector heard his words. Warlord Zyrax, you're right about one thing. This is a lesson, but not the lesson you think. Reeves's voice was calm, almost gentle. You're about to learn what happens when you threaten something humans have decided to protect. You're about to learn why Deathworld species scare the civilized galaxy, not because we're naturally violent, not because we enjoy killing, but because we've learned something that pampered species never understand. Some things are worth dying for, and when you find those things, you don't negotiate, you don't compromise. You fight with everything you have until either the threat is eliminated or you are. So come ahead, Warlord. Fire your weapons. Test yourself against humans who have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Let's see which breaks first. Your ship or our resolve? The human vessels moved, not away from the dreadnought, but toward it. They accelerated at speeds that should have torn them apart, burning their engines past safety limits. The dreadnought fired, massive energy beams lancing through space. The human ships dodged with impossible precision, weaving through destruction like dancers in a firestorm. They were not trying to destroy the dreadnought. They were trying to get close enough to board it. The assault shuttle launched from the Reaper's hangar at the last possible second, using the larger ship as cover. It was a stealth vessel, coated in materials that absorbed sensors, equipped with jammers that created electronic noise. The humans had one advantage. The dreadnought's crew expected conventional warfare. They expected the human ships to attack from range with missiles and energy weapons. They did not expect the humans to charge directly at them like ancient warriors with nothing but courage and determination. The shuttle struck the dreadnought, hull in what should have been a suicidal impact. But human engineering was designed for violent applications. The shuttle's bow was reinforced with materials from Earth's deep mining operations, harder than most species' armor plating. It punched through the outer hull like a bullet through flesh. The boarding team poured into the dreadnought's corridors before the breach alarms even finished sounding. They moved with the speed and precision of predators evolved to hunt in packs. Room-clearing tactics perfected through thousands of years of warfare. Close-quarters combat techniques that turned narrow corridors into killing fields. The Corinthian crew was larger, stronger, better armored. It did not matter. The humans fought with a ferocity that transcended physical advantages. They used their environment, their superior coordination, their absolute refusal to surrender. Every corridor became a battlefield. Every junction a tactical puzzle the humans solved with brutal efficiency. Sergeant Jackson led the advance team toward the reactor core, his cybernetic arm tearing through bulkheads when doors proved too slow. He had recorded a final message for his sister before the mission. In it, he told her he was not afraid. He told her he was proud. He told her that dying to protect others was not a tragedy but an honor. The reactor core loomed before them, massive beyond comprehension. Coolant systems pumped liquid through pipes as thick as human torsos. Energy readings showed power generation on scales that could fuel entire cities. The Marines planted explosive charges on critical junction points, programming detonation sequences that would cascade through the entire system. They needed 5 minutes to complete the setup. They had 3 before Corinthian security forces would arrive in overwhelming numbers. Commander Reeves made a decision that would echo through military academies for generations. He ordered half the team to complete the mission. The other half would hold the corridor junction, buying time with their lives. "It's been an honor," he said simply, gripping his rifle and taking position at the choke point. "Make it count." The Corinthian forces came in waves, hundreds of armored warriors pouring through corridors designed for their species' massive frames. They had every advantage except one. They were fighting humans in close quarters. They were fighting a species whose entire evolutionary history prepared them for exactly this scenario. The human defensive position, held for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Commander Marcus Reeves, Sergeant Diego Jackson, and 8 Marines faced impossible odds and refused to break. They fired until their weapons overheated. They fought hand-to-hand when ammunition ran out. They used the enemy's own numbers against them, turning the corridor into a choke point where size became a disadvantage. When the explosives detonated, the Marines were still fighting. The reactor core's cooling system suffered catastrophic failure. Chain reactions began that no emergency system could contain. The massive dreadnought, built to destroy planets, began tearing itself apart from the inside. Lieutenant Sarah Chen led the remaining team back toward the assault shuttle. She had completed the mission. The dreadnought was dying, but half her team was dead, including Commander Reeves. The price of victory measured in human lives. The shuttle barely escaped before the dreadnought exploded. The blast was visible from New Valastra's surface, a new star briefly blazing in the sky before fading to debris and memories. The two remaining human ships limped back to New Valastra. Their crews were exhausted, traumatized, mourning losses that would leave scars no medical technology could heal. But New Valastra was safe. 40,000 Valasians would wake tomorrow. Children would play in crystal oceans. Artists would create. Scientists would discover, because humans had paid the price. Thera stood at the memorial ceremony 3 days later. The Valasians had built a monument from living coral, growing it in patterns that would last millennia. The names of the fallen were inscribed in light that would never fade. Marcus Reeves, Diego Jackson, 8 others who had traveled from Earth to die protecting strangers. Lieutenant Chen, now Commander Chen through field promotion she never wanted, spoke for the fallen. These men and women came from a world that tried to kill them every day. They survived because they were tough, smart, and willing to fight for each other. When they heard your distress call, they didn't hesitate. They didn't calculate odds or debate protocols. They simply answered. Because that's what humans do. We protect, we defend. We stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. And when necessary, we pay the ultimate price to ensure others don't have to. Her voice cracked slightly. Commander Reeves once told me that being human means understanding some things are worth dying for. Today, as I stand here mourning my friends, my mentor, my commander, I understand what he meant. They died as humans, fighting, protecting, refusing to surrender. And because they died that way, 40,000 people live. That's not tragedy. That's glory. That's humanity at its finest. Kira stepped forward, her translucent skin displaying patterns of grief and gratitude that needed no translation. She carried a data crystal containing something she had compiled over the past weeks. I am a xenobiologist, she said, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd. I study alien species. I try to understand what makes each one unique. When the humans arrived, I was terrified. I had heard the stories about Deathworlders, about violence and danger and aggression. She held up the crystal. So I studied them. I watched them. I learned. And I discovered something the galaxy needs to understand. Yes, humans come from a dangerous world. Yes, they are capable of terrible violence. But they are not monsters. They are survivors who learned compassion in the harshest environment imaginable. They are warriors who choose to protect instead of conquer. They are the species we need when darkness threatens, because they have walked through darkness and emerged still believing in light. Ambassador Kelrith approached Chen after the ceremony. The Solarian diplomat's crystalline features showed patterns Thera had never seen before. Shame, respect, understanding. Commander Chen, he said quietly, I owe you and your fallen comrades an apology. I questioned your methods. I implied that violence was your first choice rather than your last resort. I was wrong. The Coalition was wrong. We created a system where peaceful species depend on distant fleets that arrive too late. You showed us that sometimes survival requires warriors willing to stand in harm's way. The Coalition Council is drafting new protocols. Rapid response forces, special operations teams modeled on your example. We're calling it the Guardian Initiative, and we're hoping humanity will help train the forces. Comment for next part.